Good evening, universe. Tonight I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in August. There are kind of a lot of them this month, which I'm very excited about. I actually have been having some insomnia, which is not cool, but it has given me more reading time, which is pretty cool. But I'm trying not to be too excited about my insomnia because that seems unhealthy. So the first book I read in August was the second Kyoshi book, which is The Fall of Kyoshi. Fall of Kyoshi, that sounds dire. The Shadow of Kyoshi by FC Yee. I've talked about this duology kind of a lot on this channel recently, so I'm going to keep it brief. But basically, this follows the life of Avatar Kyoshi and her adventures being the Avatar and trying to bring balance to the world and everything that happens in that crusade. It was magnificent. I loved it. Loved the characters. Loved the extra lore that we got. Really satisfying read. I'm really excited to dive into the rest of this author's work. And that's basically all I'm going to say about this because, like I said, I've talked about it kind of a lot. But that one, definitely an amazing read. Great start to the month. The next thing I read was Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen McManus. I am still trying to expand my readerly horizons, so I've been reading more thrillers and spooky type things. I really enjoyed her other book. Well, she has several other books, but the one that she's famous for, which is One of Us is Lying, this has absolutely nothing to do with that book. So what this book is about is a girl named Ellery goes to her mother's old hometown. She's never been there. It's called Echo Ridge. That's what it's called. Ellery goes there. Right away, some weird, thrillery type stuff starts happening. Echo Ridge is known as a place where girls go missing. Ellery's aunt went missing a long time ago. I don't think Ellery ever had the chance to meet her. So it's already kind of a spooky place. And then their first night there, they find a dead body. I'm not going to go into that too much. You can discover who that dead body is all on your own. But it follows her perspective, trying to figure out what's going on in Echo Ridge, solve all these mysteries. She's kind of a true crime aficionado, so she really likes to be like, well, it has to be this guy, and she's like, oh, it's always the boyfriend, so it definitely has to be him, like using these tropes and ideas to try and figure out who is causing these mysteries to occur in Echo Ridge. It also follows this other guy, Malcolm, who is the younger brother of somebody who is accused of having done a murder. Yes, there was a murder that happened years prior, and that is still kind of shaking this community. And so his older brother is the one that everybody thinks did it, but they didn't have like enough evidence to convict him, but everybody still secretly thinks that that's who it is. So we also follow his perspective as the younger brother of this maligned person. And I really enjoyed this book. I would say I enjoyed One of Us is Lying a little bit more overall. I think it had a little bit of better pacing and it drew me in a little bit more. It kept me going a little bit better. But you know what? Now that I'm thinking about this, I probably like them the same amount, but in different ways. One of Us is Lying is a little bit more fast-paced. This one definitely felt a little bit slower. It just had like a slower, darker kind of pace, especially because it takes place in this like spooky small town and nobody really knows what's going on. Whereas in One of Us is Lying, there's like the news broadcasters and the Bayview Four, who's famous for... I'm not going to go into that because you probably, if you haven't read it, then you don't know what I'm talking about. One of Us is Lying felt a lot more like glitzy and sunshiny and that kind of thriller. Whereas this one felt very spooky. There's a dark amusement park, and I like that vibe a little bit more. I think I also liked the characters a little bit better in this one. I don't know if they were any deeper or anything like that. I just enjoyed them. I thought they were fun. I liked Ellery's true crime thing that she was totally obsessed with. This is YA, and there were a couple of moments where I felt like it was a little bit on the nose with certain things, certain characterizations or explanations. Like, one thing I really loved is that the main character has kind of a difficult relationship with her mom. And so whenever we're in her perspective, she references her mother. She thinks of her mother by her first name rather than like my mom or mom. Like in Malcolm's perspective, because we get his perspective too, he just thinks mom when he's thinking about his mom. And I really liked that narrative difference. What I didn't like was when later, when they explain why she does that, I think it would have been fine if you just left that as like a nice, subtle little thing for readers to notice. Overall, however, I really enjoyed this. I got another book from her called The Cousins that I'm going to be reading next. I'm pretty excited about that too. I'm definitely going to be going through her entire body of work, and I'm excited to do so. Next, I read the first volume in the Twilight Princess manga series by Akira Himekawa. I had seen this in bookstores and the library. I just so happened to see volume 1 in the library when I was looking for other books, and I had middling interest in it before, so I decided to pick it up, and it was fine. I'm probably not going to continue with reading the series. I have played several Legend of Zelda games. I enjoy them, but I haven't played Twilight Princess, so I was interested in getting kind of the story. I don't know how different, obviously, the manga is from the game. I will say that obviously Link is not a silent protagonist in the manga like he is in the game. Because as far as I know, just like in the other games, Link doesn't actually, we don't see him say things. It's just like implied that he is responding kind of weirdly off screen. But in the manga, that would be wild. So instead they give him like a little bit more of a distinct, obvious personality, ways that he's reacting out loud. He has a voice, he has a distinct way that he talks, and everything like that. And I think it was just weird for me seeing Link that way. I'm not really used to that, so I feel like that was a little bit strange for me. And then the rest of it was just kind of meh. Since I didn't get very far, I only read the first volume, I don't really 100% know what this book series is about. It, like I said, it follows in some capacity the Twilight Princess game. So it has something to do with multiple worlds. There's like a princess, but not Zelda, like a different princess, and the curse and all sorts of Legend of Zelda lore that I am not brushed up on enough to speak about, and that I would probably get wrong and embarrass myself immensely. So I'm going to stop there and say that this was okay. If you're a huge fan of Legend of Zelda, then either you would probably really enjoy this, or it would be redundant for you to read. One of the two, probably. But it didn't catch my interest enough for me to continue with the series, so volume 1 is probably all I'm going to read. Next, I picked up Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I actually ended up DNFing this one. I DNF'd it around page 80. I was somewhat enjoying it, found it somewhat boring in kind of up and down lulls, but I was looking forward to digging into the whole thing until a particular scene came up. It was just very gross. Let me back up. Mexican Gothic is like a haunted house horror novel. It's about this it's about this young woman who goes to see what is going on with her cousin because her cousin has sent a letter that is very concerning and seems a little bit out of touch with reality. So our main girl's dad is like, hey, I want you to go investigate. And Noemi is our main character's name. And she says, I don't really want to do that. Her dad is like, okay, but if you do, I'll pay for you to go to university or I'll let you go, something like that. And she's like, okay, fine. I'll go find out what's going on. That sounds like a good deal. I'll go check it out. So she goes to where her cousin is. Her cousin is married into this weird, spooky family. And so it is about her adventures in this house, trying to figure out what is going on with her cousin and mysteries in the surrounding town. Noemi seemed like a great character. I was really excited to follow her because she seems like just this perfect blend of humanly unlikable, but also very clever, so she's fun to follow. I really enjoyed her. I really would have liked to see more of her. But then I got to this one particular scene, and it seems like it was a dream sequence. I don't know for sure if it is, though, because this is one of those kinds of things where it's like, well, is it or isn't it? I'm sure that is revealed later, but I'm not going to get there because it was extremely gross and very unsettling, which I'm sure is the point, but it just wasn't working for me. It wasn't the type of thing that I want to be reading. I ended up kind of skimming the scene, but it was still a little bit too gross for me. So that is the end of my adventure with Mexican Gothic. Next, I read Witch Hat Atelier Volume 6. This is another one of those series that I feel that I've spoken a lot about on my channel, so I'm not going to linger on it too long. This is a really beautifully drawn and wonderfully executed manga about a girl who accidentally with some magic in this world and is now trying to fix it. But the only way that she can fix it is by learning about magic herself. So we get introduced into this world of magic. I love our main character. I love the surrounding cast. Definitely, I feel like if you enjoyed Fruits Basket, that sort of large cast, and it's really like cute and fun on the surface, but also there's a lot of heavy stuff going on, then I definitely recommend this series. This particular volume, mostly, I don't want to describe the events, obviously, so I'm just going to tell you the emotions that I felt reading it. This particular volume was a little bit more lighthearted, so I felt a lot of wonder and joy, a lot of interest in where the story will go from here. And now for something completely different, which is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty, or Doughty, possibly. This is a memoir. It's actually the first memoir that I have ever read, I think. Maybe that's not right. Way back in the day, I think I read some other memoirs, but this I enjoyed way more than those. So if you don't know who Caitlin Doughty is, she's a mortician. She does Ask a Mortician on YouTube. She's really passionate about basically death rites, death rituals, and the things that we do with a body after somebody has died. One of my sisters may be becoming a mortician or a coroner, something in that field, so I was interested in checking this out. Plus, I'd heard good things about it, and I'm really glad that I picked it up because this was so funny. Also extremely sad in certain points because, you know, you're talking about dead bodies, and those are dead bodies of every kind with every type of cause of death. And that gets really hard. Mostly this covers her time at a cremation facility where she is a cremation worker, and she talks about how exactly that works, which was fine. I enjoyed hearing about her life. A lot of times it had personal anecdotes that I thought were really funny, and that made the heavier stuff a little bit easier to get through. My favorite parts were definitely when she talks about death rituals in other cultures, and kind of goes through like, well, this is what this people used to do, and this is what this people does now, and stuff like that. I loved that part. The rest of it, I just like enjoyed, you know, like a medium amount. Learning about how cremation works was also really cool, and various funerary rites. That stuff was really interesting. I don't really get grossed out by dead body type stuff, but I do get sad. So certain chapters were particularly difficult for me to read. I also didn't 100% agree with, she has this premise that is developed throughout the course of the book that part of the reason why we as a culture deal with death the way that we do, which is to say that we hire other people to do it for us, usually. In the United States, which is where I am from, you don't hang out with dead bodies. Her idea is basically like when you see the dead, you think of your own mortality, and that's why you don't want to deal with it. Which I don't 100% agree with. I think the mortality of my loved ones is a much more terrifying concept and more likely to be the thing that I jump to when I see a dead body. Also, the thoughts and feelings of like, who was that person and what has been lost? Who are they leaving behind? And that sort of thing is more where I tend to go with a dead body. But I still really enjoyed getting to see her perspective and hearing her argument that this is why death is treated this way in the States. Yeah, lots of really interesting stuff, interesting facts. I got to gross out and also entertain my coworkers with facts that I was learning from this book. So if you want exciting things to share at parties, I definitely recommend this. You can tell them about how embalming a corpse works or cremation. Both of those are great. And overall, I really enjoyed this book. Highly recommend. And the last thing I read this month was Sailor Moon Volume 1. I have the Sailor Moon Eternal Edition, and this is my first time reading the manga. I grew up with the Sailor Moon anime. I started watching it when I was like a toddler because it was one of the few channels that my TV could get. Would play Sailor Moon sometimes in the afternoons, and so it is the first anime I ever saw, so it has a very special place in my heart. So it was really nostalgic going back and reading the manga. But also it was very fresh and new because there are some really distinct ways that it diverges from the anime. If you are not familiar with Sailor Moon, basically the concept is she's a superhero who kills, they're like demons. She conquers these evil entities that come to Earth to steal people's life force. Usually there's like a big bad evil organization behind why people are having their energy stolen away. So she's a schoolgirl, and then she uses her magic wand to transform into Sailor Moon, guardian of love and justice. And then she kicks the butt of these monsters with various attacks and gadgets. This series has a big focus on both friendship and romance. It has also an amount of action, obviously, because she's fighting monsters. The manga is definitely faster paced. Like, Sailor Moon makes her way through higher ranking members of the evil organization much faster in the manga than she does in the 90s TV series, which is the one that I am most familiar with. I have heard, and I think that Sailor Moon Crystal is a little bit more similar to the manga. So far, from what the little amount that I've seen of Crystal and the large amount that I saw of the anime when I was a child, it seems like the manga is going to be kind of like in the middle-ish of those two, maybe leaning a little bit more towards Crystal. Now I'm going to talk about the one thing that I really did not like. It also comes with a spoiler and I guess icky romance-based warning. Our main character, Usagi, is 14. Her love interest is 17, I think. They're kind of floaty about his age, but he's like a good chunk of years older than her. I'm not going to comment on that too much, but what I am going to comment on is his several times that he kisses her when she's like asleep or drunk. I don't like that. Don't like that. Don't know why it's in there, and I don't like it. So if that kind of thing grosses you out, then keep that in mind before you read it, that is an aspect of the manga. That was in the first volume. I assume similar stuff continues to happen in the rest of the volumes, but I don't know. So that was everything I read in August. I think it was like 7 books, 3 manga, and 4 novels. Is a memoir a novel? Because I don't think it is. I think it specifically can't be a novel. I don't know what the definition of a novel is what I'm learning in this sentence. Kind of embarrassing, but we're going to glide right on. I read 4 books, 3 manga, and I really enjoyed them all. For the most part, this was a great month, and then I had that one DNF of Mexican Gothic, which again, I feel was a little bit of a shame. If you've read Mexican Gothic, please tell me if it's worth it to kind of power through that stuff that I was talking about that put me off. Otherwise, I hope you had a good reading month too. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And most importantly, have a great night, universe.